you and I were made to know God and to have relationship with God. And one of the primary places that happens is in the place of prayer. Now, in our generation, a lot of times we see prayer as the thing that our mom does, or maybe our grandma does, or it's the thing that, we just do as a ritual in a service. Or maybe it's the thing where you every once in a while when you really need something from God, you ask God for it. And that's the only, kind of experience you have with prayer. Now, I remember growing up and I was reading in the Word about Jesus. It says that he would withdraw as often as possible to out-of-the-way places to pray, or even sometimes spend all night in prayer. And I would think, how is he spending hours at a time in prayer? I can barely think of enough things to ask God for 3 minutes at a time. But what I began to realize was that prayer isn't simply about asking God for things. It's not a monologue, but it's a dialogue. It's a conversation with God where we actually begin to know God. It's where head knowledge about God moves to heart knowledge, experience of who God is, and that actual relationship with God takes place. One of my favorite quotes is by a man named Leonard Ravenhill, and he said that a person may read books because they're hungry for knowledge, but a person prays because their soul is hungry for God. And it's that place where we begin to interact with God. In my life, probably 80% of the time I spend in prayer is actually spent listening, and maybe only 20% of it is spent talking, where I'll say, God, what do you want to say to me? And I'll listen to what he says. I'll ask God a specific question, or I'll pour out my heart to God, or I'll ask him questions and just begin to hear what he says to me. And it changes everything about who we are. It's like one of those people that you're great friends with and you just enjoy being together. You just enjoy talking with them and just being in their presence. That's what prayer is. It's being in the presence of God and having that relationship with God. So I would encourage you to take, it doesn't have to be an hour at first. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes. It could just be 15 minutes of time that I would encourage you to start out and just go to a place that's maybe out of the way, that's secluded, where someone won't interrupt you, and just come into it with the goal of having that interaction with God, and just maybe start by saying, God, would you speak to me right now? Or maybe you have a specific question that's on your heart to ask God about, and just listen to what he says. And as you interact with God and as you experience God, it changes you from the inside out.